Korean students from Seogang University doing a project on Native Americans.
In this video, we hope to raise awareness of Native Americans in general and show how Native American culture is misrepresented in contemporary society.
Native American culture is not widespread culture in Korea. But what we know about or presume about Native Americans all started from a snack called Indian bop. And we would like to fix what has been mispresented in Korea. Notice, the correct use of the term Native American and Indian is an ongoing debate in the United States and the Native community. In this film, the term Indian will be used as a standardized term for the better understanding of Korean viewers. Interviews presented in this documentary were done with the consent of the interviewees and were carried out with the careful consideration.
문신, 깃털 장식, 그리고 그 미국 총잡이 서부 영화
신대륙이 생각이 나고 콜럼버스가 맨 처음에 신대륙을 발견했을 당시에 인디언들이 있었으니까
미국의 서부의 뭐 부족의 추장 그런
내가 어렸을 때 먹던
옛날에 우리 어렸을 때 먹었던 과자
한밥이라는 과자죠. 옥수수로 만든 이렇게 우유에 말아 먹는 과자.
아침 식사 대용팩. 이것도 있지 않나요?
문제점 없는 것 같은데요?
아니 그냥 인디언의 문제점이라면 딱히 찾아볼 수가 없는 그런 광고?
광고 기억나요. 광고의 문제점은 모르겠고요. 제 생각으로는 너무 인디언 밥의 그 과자랑 광고가 전혀 안 맞는 것 같아요. 그 왜 인디언이 들어갔지? 그 밥에? 그 과자에? 인디언이 옥수수를 좋아하나? 전혀 나는 그 광고와 인디언 그 밥 과자에 일맥상통된 게 하나도 없다고 생각해. 나는 뭐 딴 거 문제점은 모르겠고 왜 거기에 인디언이 왜 들어갔지? 그런 의문.
다 안 죽었어요? 죽은 줄 알았는데 관심이 없어서 잘 모르겠어요.
아예 모르겠어.
그건 잘 모르겠고 좀 문제점이 많다라는 거는
비참하게
조금 그 매스컴을 통해서라든지 어떻게 좀 어디서 들어본 적이 있는 것 같아요. 그거는 응? 그래서 뭐 문제가 되고 막 그런 거 정도 그렇게 알고 있어요. 없었지.
Here is Indian bop. It is a corn chip snack sold in Korean markets and convenience stores since 1976 for over 30 years. Here, Indian refers to the indigenous people in the United States, and as you know, bop means rice in Korean. It also has the connotation of a meal because rice is most likely to be included in a daily Korean meal. Then how did anything Indian came to be on a Korean snack? Indian bop is made 70% of corn, and that is how it got its name. Let's look at the brand story from Longshim's website. It says Indian bop is named from the main ingredient corn, which is considered as a staple food of Indians. Guess what the problem is? Despite how many people think, not all Indians actually have corn as their staple food. Do you know that there are more than 500 Indian tribes alone in the United States? Just in the state of Arizona, there are 22 federally recognized tribes. That is quite a lot of tribes that most people know. The dietary habits differ from tribe to tribe. In the days before supermarkets, tribes used different skills for different kinds of food. For example, the Inuit, or Eskimos, relied almost entirely on hunting and gathering skills for survival. some tribes were semi-nomadic, which means they didn't depend on agriculture food and used hunting and gathering skills. Tribes like Blackfoot and Sioux were big game hunters. On the other hand, the Hopi, Navajo, and Cherokee tribes were excellent farmers. Next, let's have a look at the logo of Indian Bob. There's a stereotypical Indian man with large feathers and face painting. This shows that viewers that corn is a very traditional food to the Indians, but this sends very limited information to consumers. Although colonizers were at first thankful to the Native Americans for teaching them survival skills,
many
they
massacres
soon
and
changed
wars
their
followed in
attitude
order to take
as
away native
conquerors
land.
in groups
Thousands
for
and
land.
thousands were killed. Later, they were put into reservations and conditions where they couldn't raise corn or any other crops, so there was no corn to eat. All that was left was sorrow. Today, Indians are living in either reservations or in cities.
So, putting a smiling Indian face on a corn chip snack dismisses the full history of Indians, of what happened while European Americans heroically extended their frontier line. An Indian wouldn't be smiling with something that was ruthlessly taken away from them. Because cropping corn was first taught by Indians, it is easy to connect corn with Indians. On Thanksgiving Day, American families gather around the table to thank the Indians for helping the colonists on the new land. However, it must be a day when families also grieve for the sacrifices that Indians had to give without choice.
How did Nongshim came about to create such stereotypical Indian snack? Let's start from looking at Korea's economy from 1960s. After Japanese colonial era, Korea began to show a boost in the country's economy. By the late 70s, our nation had the economic base settled for innovation and global interaction. Korea increasingly supported sports players to participate more actively in international games such as the Olympics and the World Cup. Fervent international affairs encouraged cultural exchange, including Western snack culture. Eating snacks was unprecedented in Korea, but suddenly it was a whole new trend. Among similar kinds of corn snacks, Nongshim's Indian Bap found its uniqueness as a snack derived from an exotic Indian culture. Nongshim's use of Indian culture on its snack have influenced Koreans' perspective of Indians. Black and white Western movies were popular among Koreans, and these movies included stereotypical images of Indians. The merciless savages roaming about the wild, almost naked. The first few editions of Indian Bap actually had red-skinned Indians, which is a very westernized point of view. There were no other ways for Koreans to learn about Indians other than media, Hollywood movies, and Indian Bap. And the stereotype of Indians had begun to be fixed without any censorship. To Koreans, Indians were riding horses with bows and arrows, killing a lot of people, and eating corn. However, was this image in parallel to the actual situation Indians were in at the same period? No. Indians came out from this image long before the 1970s, and they were pretty much like us, living back in the 70s. Back then, Indians were actively protesting for their rights, coming together from late 1960s as AIM, the American Indian Movement. In the year Indian Bap commercial came out, they were struggling from unemployment and poverty. Also, Indians were caught up in harsh stages where Indian children were sent to boarding schools to wear off their Indian identity, forcing them to use English and Western culture with brainwashing skills. In truth, it was a silent genocide of Indians. This reached its peak by the 70s. Evidently, Nongshim was ignorant of the situation of Indians. It was very inconsiderate of Nongshim to use a minority group's culture so easily on a corn snack, without any background knowledge. Like Indian Bob, it is easy to exploit a minority culture. This also shows that it is dangerous to accept materials without a critical view or prior knowledge.
There are a number of problematic scenes in the commercial of Indian Bob. The first problematic element is the man riding a fake horse. Riding a wooden horse to portray an Indian man is ridiculous enough, but riding a horse itself is a stereotype created by Hollywood films. In late 1800s to early 1900s, many photographers used and produced iconic images of Indian warriors on a horse, which became a stereotypical portrayal of Indians in the film industry. This phenomenon affected not only people in America, but also people in other Americanized countries. And Korea was one of them. The second problematic element is the attractive Korean woman wearing a hairband that seemed to refer to Indian culture. The stereotype of an Indian's hairband is caused by multiple use of hairband in Hollywood films. According to documentary film Real Engine, actors used hairbands to hold onto their wigs, and most actors did not have long hair and wore long wigs to portray Indianness. The third stereotypical Indian portrayal that has been rooted in Korean society is the war cry sound. In the Indian Bob commercial, woman tapping her mouth to make a howling sound is a stereotype that Hollywood films have been using for a number of centuries. Films such as Pocahontas in 1995, or Dances with Wolves in 1990, or Avatar in 2009, and etc., have portrayed Indians as savages, and they often use this war cry as part of their identity. Last but not least, the background used in Indian Bob commercial is problematic. In America, Indians were forced to move into deserted area, and their living conditions were terrible. Indians were dehumanized and treated as others in American society. During this time, Indians were given flour, lard, and oil as their main source of ingredients. And out of these limited ingredients, Indians came to cook fry bread, which is like Korean traditional food called chapsal donut. As mentioned earlier, by this time, corn was not the main dietary of Indians, but they had this very unhealthy fry bread. Nonetheless, Nongshim used corn to portray Indian food, and worse, used high-class westernized background to upscale the snack value.
Today's portrayal of Indians and perception of Indians are not very progressive. Indians are still thought of as exotic people living in the wild, crying ababa, while many Indians are living in cities today, you can see how Indians are misrepresented in Korean music videos. In 2009, Korean singer MC Mong released his album Humanimal, including a song called Indian Boy. How can you use the name of another race for a title song on an album called Humanimal? It is a dehumanizing song of the Indians, even if it was not the intent of the artist. Using the right term, either Indian or Native Americans, has been an ongoing dispute in the Native community. Some Indians prefer being called as Indian rather than Native American, but we should always be cautious of using terms to identify minority groups. Mass culture wouldn't have used words blacks, whites, or Europeans so easily. Other than the debatable use of term, the music video had the problem of including all kinds of Indian stereotypes, from feathers, arrows, and face painting, which poorly represented real Indian culture. Most of all, why are guys wearing typical explorer clothes you would see in typical jungle movies?
Just a year later, Tiara also released a song with an Indian theme called Ya Ya Ya. Just from the title of the song, you could presume stereotypical images of Indians. Not surprisingly, the music video also was full of misleading images. In this music video, we can notice the whole background setting is in a jungle. And we know Indians didn't live in such tropical areas. Tiara, a K-pop group including 7 girl members, each of them have on headbands attached with feathers and with cute face paintings on their cheeks. They are overly dressed in the all-known Indian outfits, using dance routines imitating what they think as of Indians. However, the most problematic factor of this music video is the plot where the little girl Indians kidnap a modernized guy who is lost from an airplane crash. He is brought to the little teepee camps, tied up and carried like a hunted animal. The little Indian girls dance in circles surrounding the guy tied up in the middle of the campfire, as if it looks like a powwow session of the Indians.
So, what did we learn from this? Nongshim made a mistake of misrepresenting Indian culture and sent misleading information to Korean society. Thus, many stereotypes of Indians have been rooted and evolved in not such a positive way. For example, when the Indian Bop TV commercial was out, a popular penalty game which was actually called Indian Bop was created. From one TV advertisement, the whole country became one with this game. Even today, when we cry ababa and hit people's backs, we think of this Indian Bop game, which is more commonly known than the snack itself.
야 인디안에서 내가 인디안 해도 돼? 내가 바이브레이션 좀 하게. 시작.
Many sources of media are using misconception of different cultures and must be corrected. We, as Koreans, need to relate ourselves to these kinds of stereotypes and wrong information. Imagine how we will react to foreign commercials misrepresenting our tradition. We're still fighting against Sea of Japan, and we're sensitive about the stereotype of all Koreans eating dog meat. In that sense, we also need to be respectful of other cultures, including minority culture. We need to have a habit of looking at media and materials with a more critical view. And in the past, there were only black and white movies and advertisements to gain information. But now we have only a minute to access information through internet and smartphones. Now you can censor what you receive and find out what is really true. Hopefully one day we will be free of stereotypes and learn to respect others on an equal level.